Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to Around the Kingdom. Elo, hello.
Hello, Trace. Coming up on the fastest UCF show around, we're going to break down marathon baseball and softball for UCF. Some good news on the baseball front, some not so good on the softball front as that season comes to an end. We'll break both of those down. And then, Trace, the NCAA has money? A lot of it, apparently. We're going to break all that down. Yeah, a lot coming up here on this edition of Around the Kingdom.
Well, before we get going with all of that, Eric, let us welcome in the third member of our team. He is Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF. Keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello.
Greetings, gents. Welcome to the only show where we will not do double elimination tonight. So you're both safe. No double elimination. And please end this thing before 3 a.m. Thank you.
Promise we will deliver upon. Before we get to baseball and softball and those marathons you spoke of, Elo, let's talk some football going on around UCF as well in the NCAA. I thought about it when I saw Nakai Martinez announce that he was going to Michigan State, and I started to weigh this and want to ask you, what's the biggest portal loss? Do any of them sting? Is UCF in any worse position having lost any guys?
I think it's too early to tell because we got to see how this kind of plays out with the players you lost plus the players you actually gain. It seemed like you gained a player every day or every other day. So we don't know if, you lose a player here or two, but maybe you upgraded in certain positions. I'm not sure if you've upgraded or downgraded. You might just have canceled each other out at different positions, have a different look. But I don't think we're going to know until maybe midway through the season whether we missed someone or not, Trace.
I think it's interesting. You talk about this all the time, brand names, right? And we saw a Matt Lee leave for a Miami. I know there are dollars that are involved in all of this, but now with UCF and the Big 12, losing Nakai to Michigan State, is Michigan State some, big brand that you are losing out to, or Corey Thornton to Louisville? Is that a brand that they're losing out to? I don't see it that way anymore. For me right now, I still don't know what UCF has at QB2, and I had a sense of what UCF had with Timmy McClain, so I still feel like Timmy McClain is the biggest loss so far.
I don't know if Timmy McClain's going to be missed. I think the better question is, do we know who this team is? There's such a roster turnover that I'm not sure who's who here and how good this team is. Like all these predictions and forecasts that we've been doing since January to March or April, to me, seems like it's out the window, Trace, because come August, you're going to be going at these media availabilities. They're like, well, what's your name again? Where'd you come from? That's what you're going to be like, trying to figure out who's who once we get to see these guys in July and August.
They definitely have to wear jerseys at the podium so we know their numbers because we don't know their names yet.
Ain't that the truth? I'll tell you that. Of course, finances, budgets, money. Yes, there's reports there from, according to Yahoo, there's a House settlement involved here where could be a settlement here between the schools and the NCAA. Could be in the billions of dollars, Trace. Trace, I thought the NCAA and everybody was poor, broke. Where's all this money coming from?
Where is all this money coming from, right? And the Big 12 looks to have been the first conference to reach part of its, agreement in this settlement. But they're talking about billions of dollars to pay back pay on athletes and then, a player pool of revenue. It's out of control, Elo, and there's no end to it. And what I like, though, is that they still are raising money for things like Kingdom NIL on the backs of fans, right? As they are getting ready to shell out billions of dollars to pay college students to play ball.
Trace, it feels like this is the end of amateurism. This is professional sports now. We're a farm system now. Everybody's this is absurd here. Like, this is hilarious to me. All this time, we got to keep a tight budget. We can't afford this or that. Oh, by the way, here we go, billions of dollars of a settlement. So everybody gets some revenue. This is the end of amateurism. This is not college athletics anymore. Is it, Trace? Tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong, and I wonder how it changes fandom too, right? Yeah. I think that's a theme that we are going to talk about throughout this show is connection to athletes. How does that change? I know the way I approach pro sports and maybe booing a guy, right? A multi-million-dollar athlete who drops a important pass, in a game. But now with college football, college sports, maybe you think a little bit differently of the athletes. I just think it's funny that everybody's cash strapped. UCF's going to have to tighten its belt now to give up its share here of the revenues and things to pay athletes. But it's a multi-billion-dollar business, and it only continues to grow.
Well, Trace, remember that when you go cover a sporting event in media and there's no food, you can't afford it. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, we have talked about athletes like Alec Holler, right, going from walk-on to legendary status, perhaps at UCF. But maybe now with the change in the revenue model, it will end the walk-ons. That's what Nebraska coach Matt Rule is concerned about. Already talked now of roster limits, maybe eliminating the walk-ons. But that's what comes now with paying athletes, right? You're not going to have 140 guys on a roster like Nebraska has, or more than 100 for many colleges, most colleges, right? They're going to have that tight scholarship number, and not going to be a whole lot of room for those, Cinderella stories anymore.
No, I mean, you're going to have a cap, basically. You can't spend money on everybody. And why would an athlete walk on if, hey, this person's going to make this amount when I can go maybe somewhere else and make some money? Right? Like, it used to be, hey, I want to go to this school. This was my dream. It's my local school. I'm going to walk on there. And maybe, even though I could get a scholarship somewhere else, now you're a year to year. Even if you're a walk-on, you're not guaranteed to, you don't have to keep that walk-on for an extra year. You could just bail. I mean, I think that's done. I think the days of the walk-ons are pretty much obsolete.
So, as college sports continues to expand, we'll see now the elimination likely of the walk-on, right? The destruction of rivalries, paying players. You've got Stanford in the same conference as the University of Miami. Yet this sport and NCAA continues to grow, right? Popularity at an all-time high for all sorts of NCAA athletics.
Well, but is that despite itself? I think casual people will watch, especially if it's on television. Football gambling, I think, plays a big factor in the interest on the football side. I don't think just because it's still more people tuning in, I'm not sure if down the road they're still going to be as popular. I'll use college basketball as an example. 20 years ago, it was very popular. Now, not as popular. Why? Because people can't recognize who's on each team. That might happen to football down the stretch too, Trace. Of course, you want to talk about competition down the stretch. TV battles. We got college football. Trace's favorite playoffs that he's been campaigning for since 2017. The opening round playoffs will be in December 21st, head-to-head against the National Football League, which has decided to put a cup doubleheader of themselves on broadcast television, including Patrick Mahomes. I think you've heard of him, Trace, and the Chiefs. NBC and Fox are going to carry NFL games head-to-head against the college football playoffs on December 21st. Are you satisfied, Trace? Satisfied?
I'm humored by it, really. The NFL saying to the NBA, hey, we're taking over Christmas. Christmas falls midweek this year. NFL goes, we're still going to play games on Christmas. High school football on Friday, not allowed to play in the U.S. Fine, we'll take the games overseas. I think they don't care that their minor league farm system is playing these games on a Saturday. And I think that unless there's a compelling matchup in college football playoffs, I think they're going to get socked by the NFL. And they will eventually get out of their way.
Well, that's the dumb thing from the college football playoff. They should not be playing December 21st. They could have avoided this. And now they've ticked off the NFL. And they're going to get smacked around. And I don't think those games are going to draw very well from a college football playoff, especially the 5 versus 12, where it's going to have a G5 champion there. Come on. Who cares? Give me Patrick Mahomes.
They really needed to work together. And I listened to a guy who was involved in the scheduling on a podcast in the last couple of days, and the scheduling for the NFL. And they said, yeah, college football's got to do what it's got to do. And maybe they'll figure it out, which I just thought was a certain hubris. But the NFL can back it up, right?
Oh, the NFL will definitely back it up. And for college football, they've done dumb things like this before. This is the same sport that decided to play a semifinal playoffs on New Year's Eve. I don't know. There's a few things going on New Year's Eve, like a ball dropping. Like, this is what the sport doesn't get. Casual people don't care. And you can't act like they will care. And I think that's the issue college football has. Like, you have to believe, you have to know your role, that the NFL's going to be the king. That's the only sport that'll grab casual people. But hey, we're so excited for that 6-11, the Iowa Hawkeyes against, whatever, team in the SEC, Missouri. That's what you wanted, Trace. You wanted, we got to expand the playoff.
I didn't say I wanted it to go up against the NFL. I do like the expanded playoffs, though, but we'll have to see what those matchups are. I like that. Iowa against a group of 5 opponent.
Oh, God.
Going up
That's what we're going to get.
the NFL.
3 lost teams, baby. Holy smokes. Man.
Hey, as long as a 3-loss or a 4-loss UCF finds its way into the mix, then I'm all fine with it, Elo. All right, time to bring back in Adam, and not that this show's not silly enough, but our break in the action for a silly game.
I'll take it, gentlemen. All right, we're going to talk baseball in a second. We just finished watching UCF round 1 of the Big 12 Conference baseball tournament. Got a little dicey at the end there. So, gents, here's my question for you. In which sport is a late game close score scenario more stressful? Is it football, basketball, or baseball? Late game score that's close. Which sport's more stressful? Elo, I'll start with you.
Oh, man, you're always at the top of your game, Adam. That's a great question. And it really depends on the scenario. But I think there's nothing more stressful than when you're trying to hold on to a lead in football and have to make a goal line stand, right? Like we saw with Michigan and Alabama. That's as stressful as it gets. I would go football.
I think the obvious answer here is football, but any of them. Basketball, I think when you're down to a couple of seconds left and it's a couple of point game and it's got to be decided on the free throw line of all things, especially at the college level with college kids making free throws, I have found that to be stressful. I think there were quite a few stressful UCF basketball games this past season that went down to the final second. So I think the obvious answer is football, but I'll say basketball for purposes of this.
I think baseball is low key. Like there's so much time in between pitches, guys step out of the box, you're bringing in a reliever. There's so much time that builds up in baseball. I think that can make that more stressful. But let's stay on that topic for a second. So for those who aren't aware, again, the Big 12 tournament's played in Globe Life Field. That is the home park of the world champion Texas Rangers. So Trace, kind of a similar question to last week. If you could watch UCF football or UCF basketball play in one neutral site venue, where would you want to see either football or basketball play? Neutral site venue that you'd want to watch UCF play.
Football or basketball neutral site venue. Basketball in Madison Square Garden would be one.
We've done that.
Well, I wasn't there for it. I wasn't there for it.
Well, if you didn't see it, you didn't count that. Never mind.
You asked me where I would want to see it.
Strike it out of the record book. Trace wasn't there. Done.
You asked me where I would want to go. I would have wanted to go there. A neutral site game for football. I don't know. I got booed for selecting Notre Dame over the Rose Bowl. So put me in a neutral site game in the Rose Bowl. So that I make up for what some considered a mistake and answer last week.
Elo, do you want to see UCF play in Mercedes-Benz Field like Trace, or do you have something?
I saw that.
Okay, good. That one counted. Okay.
Well, first of all, I got this Texas Rangers hat during the baseball game. The baseball game went so long that they actually shipped me the hat to the Rangers. So
delivery.
Yeah, I got it delivered in time. Look, for football, I said it. The Rose Bowl, Pasadena. Give me a UCF game. That's nothing like it. That would be fantastic. A venue for football. If you're going to take that away from a neutral site standpoint, how about let's have some fun, Adam? Let's go to Vegas. Play it right there in that football stadium where the Super Bowl was. I mean, that's not a bad place to hang out for football. So I'll do it with that. Basketball, we already did Madison Square Garden despite Trace's denial. We did do that.
Was I not asked where I would want to see?
Wow. I mean, I'm just saying it happened. I mean, I would love to go to MSG and do that again, but it did happen. So I'm going to try to pick something that didn't happen. How about this? Play at a Final Four at Jerry's World, because they've done that before in Dallas. Huh?
Okay. I like you. So Elon knows how to play the game. All right, here we go. I have no idea why this question popped in my head, but it did, and so you have to deal with it now. Of the coaches that have left UCF in the recent years, Scott Frost, Josh Heupel, Coach Abe, or Coach Dagenet, Elo, if you could bring only one of those four back to UCF right now, which coach would you want to bring back? Frost, Heupel, Coach Abe, or Coach Dagenet?
Oh, give me Coach Abe back, man. Always enjoyed post games with her, doing women's basketball, praise the zone, play good defense. I like to think we wouldn't be in the position that we would be in women's. I was always a friend of the staff. I don't know if we've had a drop off with the other sports, so that's why I would go with Abe, just because I enjoyed actually covering her in women's basketball, which is a lot to say.
Hard question there. I'm a little nostalgic at times for Scott Frost, and I think he could strike lightning in a bottle again at UCF.
Is that because he's a Cubs fan like you? Is that because you guys could talk Cubs? You and Juan Toribio, all three of you just chat about the Cubs?
Put me down for Scott Frost.
I'd love to see that conversation. All right, last one. Jen, I was traveling this past week. I know, Trace, you've been all over the world. Eric, I know you were traveling the last couple of weeks. So here's my question. I don't know if either of you have encountered this. What is the customary amount to tip the valet? When you valet your car and they bring it back to you, Trace, what's the customary amount for the valet tip? Is it 0? Is it 2? Is it 5? What's the customary amount there?
I don't know. I don't valet. I Uber. I don't rent a car anymore. I don't valet. I don't valet. So I don't know.
All right, I'll answer. See, Adam, unlike Trace,
Uber,
I will answer your
rental
questions.
car.
So my sister came down to visit recently to see my mom and all that. She got a rental car. But the interesting thing is they drove her. They picked her up at the airport, went to the place to get the rental car. She didn't have to go on her own. To me, that's warranted of a big tip when they drive. I think that's the key. Do they drive you to your place? Do they park your car for you? Or are they just kind of watching it? I think that determines the amount that you spend as far as the tip is concerned.
So I had a friend of mine tell me it depends on how sweaty the valet driver looks, because that means they worked harder. So you have to gauge the amount of sweat, and if they're dripping in sweat, they get a couple extra dollars. But I didn't realize.
What if it was raining? What if it was raining?
I don't know. If Tracy didn't see it, it didn't happen apparently.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
thank you, Adam. John Rothstein, switching gears, Elo. Out with the news first, long rumored that the Big 12 going to a 20-game conference schedule for men's basketball, as if though that 18-game slugfest wasn't enough for UCF fans last year. Now we've got a couple of teams leaving, some being added. It's going to be a 20-game schedule. How does anybody survive that?
That's rough. I mean, obviously, it totally makes sense. It's your best chance to get RPI games is to get more conference games. That's the theory behind it. I understand that. You mentioned the new teams coming in. It's Arizona. Hello. Utah. Hello. Colorado. Hello. Arizona State. Hello. Yeah, just what you need. More tough games. I know some people, and everybody's going to do this. Everybody is talking about all the ads for the UCF basketball roster, and they're all this great talent. Yeah, I got. Guess what? So does everybody else in the Big 12 have talent. Yeah. Keep that in mind. I've said it before, man. No sport has a bigger climb than UCF basketball. I think it's hard just to crack the top 10 in the Big 12, let alone be a contender. I'm sorry. I don't care who the coach is. Okay, bottom line. But 20 games, you're right. The positive is maybe it gives you some more opportunities to get some quality wins that helps you get to postseason in the NCAA. Maybe.
I think the other thing it changes is your non-conference schedule. Fewer games, right?
Sure.
So it's going to be interesting when you have that 20-game schedule. How do you schedule your non-conference? Already UCF announcing that home opener against Texas A&M.
That's pretty good.
That's no Stetson right there. No Bethune-Cookman. That one's a tough one. What do they do with a non-con schedule? It's got to be shorter and presumably a little bit lighter, but you got to be prepared for that Big 12 schedule. So you got to find the right mix there.
Well, you can't make it too light because the committee will punish you for having a weak non-conference schedule. So you it's a balancing act. And man, it's rough.
Going to be fun when that schedule comes out, Elo.
Fun and scary. I'll be in a fetal position when that schedule comes out. Speaking of tough.
You in the fetal position.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to be at. So, Trace, I don't know if you realize, but I was in Tallahassee this weekend covering UCF softball till 3 a.m. Sunday morning. I'm guessing you didn't watch that either. Or at
I
least
did
stayed up
watch that. It
the
was
whole
only
way?
2 in the morning in the Central Time Zone where I watched it from.
Well, that's an advantage of being on the Central Time Zone. UCF season came to an end 2-1 in 12 innings in the longest postseason game in UCF softball history. They go 1-2 in the Tallahassee Regional. Their one win was over Auburn in the biggest comeback in UCF softball history in the NCAA tournament, losing to Florida State in between. They end the season 31-25. I look at it as they got to a regional Sunday, which was the goal, but they didn't get to the regional final. Your thoughts, Trace? From your perspective, I was behind home plate. You were at home, comfortably watching.
I was not home. I was on the road. Watched it on my phone. Very dramatic. It epitomized the UCF season. I think you know this very well. Another 1-run loss. Very dramatic. It was. I don't know what to make of the pitching performances. I just, being a big fan of baseball and knowing the pitch counts and seeing those pitchers in softball go as long into the wee hours of the morning, the number of pitches, it was just a marathon. And I knew when it went extras that whoever lost, that was just going to be a gut punch to them. You opened it up asking people to ask some questions. I want to redirect some questions to you. Robert, 2 letters, 2 words, frequent questioner for us on Suns content, asking about softball team found themselves with runners first and second, 0 outs, bottom of the 8th. Up to that point, only generated 3 hits. Why not play small ball there? Do you question the approach?
No, I mean, it's a fair question to ask. I believe Chloe Evans was the one at the plate. And it's kind of a catch-22 there. If you bunt Chloe Evans and the hitters after them don't drive in the runs, then people say, well, why did you not let one of your best run producers try to drive in the game-winning run? She's done that. She did that against Kansas. So they've done it both ways. I'm sure they probably thought in retrospect they could have bunted, but this has not been a great bunting team this year. And I'm sure Auburn would have just kind of loaded up the bases and things like that. But that's been the story, Trace. You've said it all year. Game of margins, this situational hitting, UCF just hasn't gotten that hit. They had a couple chances, 2 on, nobody out, and extra innings didn't deliver. That was the story there.
All right, quick one, Elo. Black Gold _ Ed. Was there a way to make Sarah Willis, the starter versus FSU, save her?
Well, I think the plan was to do that. That's why they started Felton against Auburn. The problem was that strike zone was small in the Friday game. It turned into a shootout. They had to bring in Willis, who threw over 100 pitches in the Auburn game. And I think it's one of those things where at some point you're going to have to throw somebody other than Willis. I think they threw Felton. I think Willis would have come in relief. It's a fair question. We're seeing a lot more of this in college softball. They're going more of the baseball strategy. Look at Auburn. They threw Maddie Penta both games on Saturday. She had nothing left on Sunday, and FSU crushed Auburn. So you got to get a pitcher at some point.
One more, Nelson asking, any interaction between Sarah Willis and Auburn's pitcher after the game? Of course, TV broadcast goes away. What was
they shook hands. Yeah, both teams shook hands, and I think there was a long pause there. They both talked. Tremendous respect. In my 18 years, it's the best pitching duel I've ever seen in person, Maddie Penta and Sarah Willis. What a way for Willis to go out. One of the great performances ever. I'll never forget that game. It's heartbreaking. I've compared it. I wrote about it on blackandgoldbanner.com, Trace. This is softball's version of the UCF Duke men's basketball game. A classic to be a part of, but it hurts a lot.
All right, question for you. I was almost going to hit you with this one cold, not put it on the rundown, but I thought that would be unfair considering. Mount Rushmore, UCF softball. Who are the 4, Elo? You have done the top players lists for the Black and Gold Banneret. Sure. You know the Hall of Famers that come from softball in the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame. Do we have members that were on this team that will make that Mount Rushmore?
Well, I will say this. I'm working on a column on blackandgoldbanner.com that hopefully will come out later this week about Jada Cody and Shannon Doherty. I think they should both be first ballot Hall of Famers, the UCF Athletic Hall of Fame. I think from a dynamic duel in UCF softball history, those two should be on a Mount Rushmore along with Stephanie Best and Janae Shidhoster, Mackenzie Otis and Shelby Turnier. Those are probably the 3 best dynamic duels company there. I don't think you can put Jada without Shannon, vice versa. They're that identical. They combined. They were part of 182 wins of UCF during their time here. No UCF softball player has more wins than Cody and Doherty. They are definitely the faces of this era, and I would put them there with probably Allison Kime and Shelby Turnier. And Mac, you're getting me in trouble here. I'm not a fan of
you haven't even included coaches, and you got more than 4 people on that.
Oh, it's a lot, bro. That's why I hate Mount Rushmore. 4 is too little. We need to come up with our own Rushmore, like Night 7 or something. I don't know.
Good stuff, Elo.
Yeah.
It was an interesting season, to say the least, for UCF softball. Goes down to the wee hours of the morning in a loss
3 in the morning
to Auburn. But of course, not the only sport that knows of extra innings here.
No, because baseball tried to match it. Boy, they try. As we recorded this, we just concluded UCF baseball with a dramatic 11-inning win over Cincinnati. Danny Nerai becoming the first player ever in a Big 12 tournament game to hit 3 home runs, including the go-ahead home run in the 11th to give UCF a win. They led as much as 5-1, led 5-3 in the 9th, which at 2 outs, a ground ball up the middle. Mikey Kluska couldn't get to second, through to first, save, 2 runs scored. It would have been catastrophic of a loss, but UCF found a way to win, Trace. Huge win against the Bearcats. What's your reaction to that kind of wacky game?
Well, they had this one, right? The pitching was moving along. They had left a lot of guys on base. You say maybe they can get a day off if things work out right. And then they go extra innings. They leave all these guys on base, but they find a way to win. And I think most importantly, for the RPI, for postseason NCAA tournament berth, they definitely needed 1 win. Some will argue 2, but they continue to play, and they know they've got that 1 win. So I think it was really critical from that standpoint.
It's a wonky Big 12 tournament format. We don't have time to get through all that. It's the biggest nonsense I've ever seen in my entire life of a conference tournament. But I agree with you. If they lose that game, they're in trouble. I think they win that game. I think they're on the right side of the bubble. They should. And the beauty of the Big 12 tournament is you're going to play teams that won't hurt your resume. Like, for example, if they end up playing Oklahoma State or something like that, that's not going to hurt your resume. What you have to watch for if you're UCF is teams stealing bids in other leagues. Yeah. But give him credit, man. That's a heck of a win. And Chris Sosnowski got in relief there. And the bullpen, that's been a pleasant surprise for UCF. We wondered who other than Santala and Kramer would step up. Trace, we've had a couple guys like
other guys have
stepped up.
Yeah, other guys have. All right, moving on to prop bets, Elo. I thought I had this one in the bag. Doherty and Cody, your Mount Rushmore contenders. They combined for 3 hits. Previs and Ziska, they combined for 6 over the weekend. You pick up another win, you're on a roll after that little match.
All right.
That had me stretching things out.
Yeah. All right, here's a unique one. We've got a unique prop bet for you, Trace. UCF baseball, in or out of the NCAA tournament come Monday, and if they're in, are they a last 4 in or not a last 4 in? That's your prop bet.
In and not last 4 in.
Oh, I'm going to say in, last 4 in. So we'll see who wins that.
In, last 4 in. All right. Time to bring back in Adam. Give us a little knowledge. Correct us where we may be wrong.
I don't know. We're short on time. So here's a couple of quick items. Trace, you were curious about backup quarterback. If you listen to the Suns quasi-live show this week, we had Phillip Dukes on. He's high on Ja'Curry Brown as a quarterback, so you can find that on our YouTube page. He really likes Ja'Curry Brown, so maybe an upgrade there, Trace. You mentioned the Big 12 has agreed to settle. News from Pete Thamel tonight, the ACC has joined them in settling as well. So Big 12, ACC both are settling that. You mentioned the supersize. All money's out of everywhere, Trace. Big 12, you mentioned schedule supersize. Bill Self on record, he's not a fan of that. So I don't know if that'll weigh heavy, but Bill Self not a fan. I want to congratulate Elo for the most wardrobe changes ever during an Around the Kingdom show. I saw 2 hats. That's fantastic. And follow up lately on the Mount Rushmore. Elo put 4 duos of people on the Mount Rushmore, 9 people total. So not quite the 4 we needed on Mount Rushmore, but we'll get you next time.
If Trace doesn't answer your questions, why should I answer his?
Thank you, Adam. One more thing before we go. All right, Elo, this Big 12 championship going on in Texas, and they've unveiled all of these specialty hot dogs. The Knight's Dog, that's DAWWG. Would you eat this Texas chili footlong hot dog piled high with sliced ham, pulled pork, melted Swiss cheese, and topped with spicy mayo?
That's a no. How did we come up with that to be the UCF dog? It's my question.
By the way, do you know what the price tag is on this hot dog?
I'm afraid to ask. What is it?
$16.99.
All right, you can get that out of the Sons of UCF budget there. If you want to try.
Look for new episodes midweek every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel, wherever you get your downloadable content. Also on the podcast feed. Thank you, Adam, for Eric Lopez. I'm Trey Trylko. Thanks, everyone, for watching this week's Around the Kingdom.